So the two issues are, the first issue talks about whether or not this questionnaire can be changed without a vote or a change of policy, or without the approval of someone else other than the Chief Compliance Officer. So that's kind of more, especially in the ways that this questionnaire is being proposed to be changed. The second issue was...
Dan, before you, excuse me, could you just point us to where in the minutes exactly you're...
Absolutely. I did before, but I will do it again, which is...
You don't mind.
It's on page 3 of the minutes, under Action 2, Compliance Officer Update. And so it specifically says a revised questionnaire would be filed pursuant to the board's current ethical conduct policy, and there is no need to establish a new policy to move forward with this following requirement.
And Chris, did you confirm that to be the case?
Yeah, the policy says that the form the questionnaire is what's formed. Basically, the wording is something to the effect. Well, let me read it. It's the form then in use. Let me get into it. An annual questionnaire on conflict of interest in the form then being used by SIRS.
Right, but you're actually suggesting a new form.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to make a suggestion here. Dan, the sentence that says a revised questionnaire, we can have a discussion about different views on that, but it seems to me that sentence of the minutes is not the recollection of at least several members of the committee. And it also seems to me we need to insert a sentence at that spot that says something like what you just said, which I would translate as numerous concerns were expressed over whether a questionnaire could be revised without board action or approval.
And right, that would be fine, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I mean, that, Representative Frankel, and then I'll leave it up to you.
So I'm going to suggest, Chris, that if the minutes delete the sentence that Terry read questionnaire, we'll just add the sentence that just read.
You're breaking up, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to suggest that if the minutes delete the sentence Terry just read,
Right.
Which began a revised questionnaire will be distributed, and add the sentence I suggested, which was concerns were expressed over whether a questionnaire can be revised without board approval or other action. Does that accurately reflect Representatives Tobash and Frankel and Senator the substance of the meeting?
So then, Chairman Torrisella, the very last sentence, just quickly, which is page 4 of 5, Mr. Houston will compile this information, share it with the committee at December 20th meeting for review prior to the questionnaires released to the full board and designees for completion. That also, the issue about people objecting would already be covered by your earlier comment. And he absolutely said there was a discussion about needs for additional information. He said he would compile the additional information potentially. He did say he'd share it with the committee. The concept of prior to the questionnaires released to the full board and designees for completion is again relates to that earlier issue. So,
Mr. Treasurer? Yes.
Yeah.
Representative Todash.
Thank you. So my recollection is, as you have stated in the changing or adding the previous sentence that you're recommending. However, it goes a little deeper than that, and I think Dan is explaining it. But my recollection was that there was substantial pushback on changing appointed board members to a requirement that is consistent with the governor's code of conduct, and some discussion and belief that members being appointed by different bodies should not necessarily be held in the same criteria, and that we weren't simply going to ask for an additional questionnaire to be presented and then implemented. We were going to have some additional information that we could take a look at potentially what that questionnaire might be, and then and then discuss it and debate it and have something that is suitable to the body, the board, and the bodies that are appointing the members. So, the idea that that Chris went out and got the additional information is correct, but from the agenda, it looks like, okay, we're going to present the information and then implement it in January, and I think that is moving too quickly.
Okay, thank you.
What if we put a period after the word review?
Well, Terry, hold the thought. Senator DeSanto has his hand raised
Sorry.
virtually. And even before that, can I just ask, as a parliamentary matter, do we need to resolve the minutes before moving on to anything else in the agenda? Who knows the answer to that?
We do not, correct, Joe?
Yes, that is my opinion. You do not
We
need
do
to
not
approve the
have
minutes.
we do not have to approve the
Okay.
minutes here and now.
So
Yes.
I'm going to actually suggest we will recirculate the revised minutes at the end of this, taking these on board. But meanwhile, Senator DeSanto had his hand up.
Haven't even started yet.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. I agree with Representative Tobash. I think there's a lot around there, and I have comments when we get down to the conflict of interest questionnaire. So, if we're going to glide over the minutes, fine.
Okay. So it sounds to me that the minutes should add that sentence I read, and it sounds like they may want to delete two sentences. Chris, is it possible for you to revise those so we can turn to it at the end of the meeting? And I understand and hear and share the institutional prerogative concerns that are being addressed, but I'm on the procedural matter of the minutes. Could someone revise those to reflect this, that we can return to them at the end of the meeting?
Terry, I'm not Terry, but
Yes.
Karen, did someone jot down, unfortunately I was dealing with other things here, but did someone jot down what the correction was? And Karen, since you have the minutes, is that something you could have Ryan work on?
Yeah,
We
it
have
would have
plenty
to
of time during this meeting to work that out. Lots of time between now and the end of the meeting, and we'll work that out. I'll circle the troops.
Okay. So, and I think add that sentence, and it sounds like two sentences should be deleted.
Did you want to? Was it the two sentences deleted at the end? Just get rid of it all? Because Chris, do you have information to bring back today?
I do, and that's part of the presentation.
So I think, Treasurer, what if we just put a period after Houston was going to collect the information and bring it onto the December meeting for review, period, and just get rid of the rest of it, which kind of implies, indirectly implies we would move forward if we put a period after the word review and left it at that.
I think that would capture the spirit of what I think I'm hearing.
That is correct, Dan Occo, I would agree with that.
Okay, we'll get those changes and circle back around towards the end of the meeting. How about that?
Okay.
I just want to make
Very
a comment that the slide we're going to be streaming publicly has a bullet, implementation of revised annual questionnaire and conflict of interest for reporting period of January 1, 2020 to December 31, 2020. That we can not cover in light of the change of the minutes.
Okay.
So, Dan, when you slide, you don't want to show that part.
All right.
Can you say that again? I didn't understand what he was saying. I apologize.
I'm sorry. There's a public slide in board docs that would be displayed, and there's a bullet on there that talks about contemplating implementing this for the reporting period of this calendar year. Which we won't.
And we don't want to do that based on
Right.
the conversation. So you can talk around it, you cannot show the slide, or I could probably change the slide if somebody sends it to me in
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay. Okay. All right.
However you want to.
All right. Let's go.
All right. Well, with that, we will return to minutes. We'll proceed to old business, the first item of which is the conflict of interest questionnaire. I will turn this over to Chris, but I'm going to suggest that we should move through this briskly because I think that this is this sounds unsettled, certainly for today. But Chris, why don't you take it away here?
All right, so we have the first item on the agenda is a conflict of interest questionnaire. There's a memo in board docs. It's under item 4A, and this deals with a question which came up prior board meeting or committee meetings. At the September meeting, we reviewed a draft of a revised annual questionnaire on conflict of interest, which included as an appendix the financial disclosure of investment holdings, which is to be completed by the board members and their designees that are currently not required to file the Code of Conduct Statement of Financial Interests. That includes the treasurer and legislative board members along with their designees. And the thinking was that the information being reported would be the same investment information requested of those required to file under the Governor's Code of Conduct, which would be reported by all other board members. So board members who are required to complete the Governor's Code of Conduct Statement of Financial Interest would not need to complete the appendix to the conflict of interest questionnaire because they're already reporting that information. So before implementing the use of a revised questionnaire, we were asked to provide a copy of the Governor's Code of Conduct Statement of Financial Interest and to highlight the information that is proposed to be included in the revised questionnaire. In board docs, we have attached an actual copy of the 2020 Financial Disclosure Code of Conduct form, which has highlighted the information which we would be proposing to include in the questionnaire. So that's the information that you were requested that we provide for you to take a look at. Again, so the concept here is that all board members then would be reporting on the same aspects of their personal economic interests, their business interests, and their real property interests. And attached to the materials in board docs are red line and clean copies of the draft revised questionnaire, and as I said, a copy of the Code of Conduct. I'll open it up for discussion. This is something that we can discuss today. You can take it under consideration. You can give suggestions as to which direction you want to go. We can certainly bring back to the committee whatever changes you wish to make, or if you don't want to make any changes, and we can go from there.
So I'm going to, my suggestion, I'm hearing a strong set of concerns around kind of institutional prerogatives in subjecting different statutorily identified appointees to a governor's standard, any governor's standard. I'm going to suggest, given that we have an extensive agenda otherwise, that we table the substantive discussion on this to the next meeting without prejudice, with the minutes reflecting there are still open issues. I don't know that we have I don't know that we have time to wade into this today, but if members of the committee object to that, I'm open to entertaining an alternative approach. I'm just keeping my eye on our agenda and our task.
That's fine. Thank you.
That sounds prudent to me, Chairman.
Yes, I would support that as well.
All right. If that's the case, then this will carry forward as old business, and we will circle back to the minutes. And thank you, Chris, for the update. On insider and personal trading policy amendments. Next item of old business. Chris, this is also yours, and we have some material in board docs on this as well.
Right. So in board docs under 4B, we have a memo from me highlighting a proposed technical amendment to the insider and personal trading policy. As you recall, the board at the September meeting adopted the policy. We noticed that there was a definition for the phrase prohibited securities list, which was incomplete. So we proposed a technical correction to correct the definition And we have in the board docs, you have the documents we're showing a red line and a clean version of the policy. The policy, by the way, as you recall, doesn't go in effect until January 1, 2021. But what we're looking for is for this committee to take action to recommend that the board adopt a resolution to adopt the revised insider personal trading policy, really to correct that definitional term with an effective date of January 1, 2021.
Okay, having seen your materials, is there any discussion about the proposed technical cleanup on this policy? If that's the case, a motion is in order to recommend to the State Employees Retirement Board to adopt the amended insider and personal trading policy as attached with an effective date of January 1, 2021. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Second, is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by, do I need a roll call, Chris? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, could you take the roll, please?
Karen, are you going to take the roll? Karen?
Sorry, I was muted. Sure. Senator DeSanto?
Aye.
Representative Frankel?
Yes.
Ms. Soderberg?
Yes.
Mr. Thal?
Yes.
And Committee Chair Torsella?
Aye.
All right, a unanimous vote.
Okay, that policy has been amended effective January 1. Our next item are special presentations from the Kpmg 2020 Independent Audit Plan and Strategy Team. So Eric, I think Eric, Craig, and Lindsey, I'm not sure who's going when, turn this over to you, and thank you.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I hope.
Yes, we can
Okay,
hear you.
good. I was having technical difficulties, so the fact that this meeting was delayed has helped me correct those. So, welcome, and I appreciate the opportunity to present the 2020 audit plan to the audit committee. This is in accordance with our professional standards to meet with the audit committee, to discuss our plan, and I think it's an important part of our audit, and also to have an opportunity for the committee members, if there's any questions, for you to be able to ask the auditors questions before we embark in the 2020 audit. As we look through our materials, on page 2 of our materials, it talks about our commitment to you, and I think that's a great way to start. Our commitment is to provide you with a quality audit and making sure that we are transparent in our communications to not only management but also to this committee. Our audit will provide you a risk-based audit, which means that we sample items. We don't look at every transaction of service throughout the year, but it also provides you the best of class and industry experience and topical insights of this audit. As we look at this audit is a little bit different than it was in 2019. When we talked to you last year, it was pre-COVID. We ended last year's audit when COVID, 8 months later, we were still in COVID. And so I think it's on page 2 of our materials. This slide talks about the coordination of COVID-19. There's been a tremendous amount of efforts already with management and Kpmg to ensure that we are connected and we are transparent and working together in this remote environment. This audit will be conducted remotely as it stands right now, and we have worked with management to ensure that it will be transmitted electronically and securely throughout this audit so that confidential information remains confidential. Kpmg is providing insights to not only serve but to our other clients in regards to financial reporting and other impacts of COVID-19 and audit-related matters. And this slide provides you a great snapshot of the resources that are available throughout the audit. On page 3 is our client service team, and I could not do this audit by myself. Would not even attempt to do so, but this slide provides you with a snapshot of our engagement team and the members that are here with you today. And so we have, besides myself, we have 2 other engagement team members. I'd like to have them introduce themselves and also go through the rest of this presentation. Craig?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Craig Swallow. I'm a managing director based in our Harrisburg office. This will be my 4th year on the SIRS audit team. I also work on several other state agency audits with Eric and others, and have spent some significant time in the financial services industry working on clients with large kind of investment portfolios. So I'm looking forward to coming back to the team again this year, and we'll be working closely with Eric and the rest of the team on planning and executing our audit, working with our specialists, etc. Lindsey is one of the team members as well who's here, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsey Hoff. I'm an audit manager out of the Harrisburg office for Kpmg. I'm actually returning. I helped out on the SIRS audit engagement last year, but this will be my first full year. And I will be helping both Eric and Craig kind of run the day-to-day activities for the audit this year and manage the troops on the ground. So thanks for having us, and we'll keep going with the presentation.
All right, Craig?
Okay, great. Yeah, no, it's great. If we can flip over to page number 4 of the presentation, I'll just make a few comments on the scope of our audit. So we issued an audit report over the SIRS financial statements, which includes both the pension fund and the investment plan. We also issue an audit report over the deferred compensation plan, as well as the GASB 68 schedules that are provided to employers. And the SIRS audit report, the financials and the footnotes are included in the annual CAFR that is issued, so we review that document as well. We do not issue a separate opinion on the internal controls of SIRS. However, as part of our audit process, we do gain an understanding of controls in key process areas and consider those controls as we develop our audit approach. And with regards to audit fees, we do bill those in accordance with the contract that we have in place, and we communicate with management if there are any changes in scope that are noted throughout the period. Page 5 of our materials is really just a summary of the remaining items that we'll cover, so I'll go ahead and jump over to page number 6 regarding materiality and just give some high-level comments here. As we design our audit plan and related procedures, we do that in the context of materiality, which is really based on both quantitative and qualitative considerations. And at a high level, a matter is deemed to be material if there's substantial likelihood that an item would impact the ability of a user of the financial statements to rely on the information that's being presented. Ultimately, the audit opinions that we do issue state that financial statements and footnotes are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with the accounting standards and accounting principles. And we plan our audit procedures and determine the sample of transactions that we'll be testing, taking into consideration those materiality levels. If we move to the next page, we'll just give a highlight on some of the audit timeline and the procedures that we'll perform, as well as the reporting to the committee throughout the year. We've already started to begin some of our preliminary work in regard to our audit approach and planning. We have frequent communications with both management and internal audit throughout the year, including inquiries with management, walkthroughs of key processes, testing of key audit areas, and on the far right-hand side, you'll see we plan to issue our audit opinions in the May and June timeframe, consistent with prior years. And we've had great cooperation and coordination in the past with management and internal audit, and we certainly expect that to continue going forward as well, even in the remote working environment that we've all grown accustomed to, as Eric noted earlier. If we flip over to page 8, Page 8 and 9 talk about some of the key areas of our audit and the assessment of risks as it relates to error and risks related to fraud. So page 8 talks about what we described as a significant risk due to fraud. And management override of controls is considered to be a presumed fraud risk at every entity in accordance with the auditing standards. Given the unique position of management to potentially manipulate an existing set of internal controls that are present within an organization. This is a risk that is, again, present at all entities. It's not specific to SIRS, and we don't have any indication that would indicate the risks at SIRS are different or elevated compared to other agencies, but it is in accordance with the standards we do designate it as such. We note here on this page our considerations on identifying fraud risk factors and how we respond to those fraud risks, including inquiries of individuals at all levels throughout the organization, evaluating controls and performing testing over journal entries, evaluating estimates for potential management bias, and maintaining a level of unpredictability as we perform our testing procedures. Now, if I move to slide 9, away from the significant risk of fraud, more to the risk of error, we perform a risk assessment throughout the entire audit, and we evaluate that risk on a continuum. And we take into considerations items such as the significance of account balances, complexity and volume of underlying transactions, the subjectivity of items related to management estimates. And the items that we have listed on this page are considered the key audit areas and areas of focus that we perform our testing on each year. And there's really shouldn't be any surprises here. We do spend a significant amount of time in these areas, investments, including alternative investments, actuarial assumptions and census data, as well as testing of contributions and benefit payments, kind of the core processes of the agency. So the core audit team on the engagement side works very closely with the specialist, as we've noted here on this page. We've done that throughout the audit. I'm actually going to turn it over to Lindsey. She'll talk about our involvement as specialists and some other materials in our presentation.
Thanks, Craig. So I think we can move on to the next slide. And this slide, as Craig alluded to, discusses our involvement, our planned involvement with others as we go through our audit procedures this year for SIRS. And as in years past, we will be working very closely with Karen and her internal audit team. And while we don't rely on their work or use them in any sort of direct assist capacity, we do coordinate with them very closely as we perform our risk assessment procedures and also our planned audit procedures as we progress through our audit. And as Craig also mentioned, some of those significant audit areas do require us to also work with some of our actuarial valuation and information technology specialists, and they assist us in reviewing actuarial assumptions, alternative investments, and also evaluating the IT environment for SIRS. So proceeding on to the next slide, this slide discusses how independence is a shared responsibility between Kpmg management and the audit committee. And it is all of our responsibility to ensure compliance with independence rules, as well as our responsibility to ensure we are complying with our professional standards. As part of that, our firm maintains a system of independence quality control to ensure we are independent in fact and appearance, but we do need your help in making sure we are provided with timely information about changes or transactions impacting SIRS and the business. And then we must all be aware of our professional and personal relationships to ensure we maintain compliance with these independence standards. And then if we flip to the next slide, this slide discusses the responsibilities of all parties during our planned audit. So Kpmg, we will ensure that we are performing our responsibilities in compliance with our professional standards, and we will communicate with management and those charged with governance in a timely and effective and appropriate manner. And that really sums up, there's a lot of words on that slide, but that pretty much sums it up as far as our responsibilities. And I think that brings us to the end of our presentation. So I'll pause there and see if we have questions or comments from anybody on the board.
Members of the committee or board members sitting in the committee, questions for our auditors on the plan they've outlined? If there are none, I would just ask you, Team Kpmg, to talk a little bit about the confidence level of the sampling when it comes to the private market investments, and given the inherent inability to check every last one of them in the valuations.
Thanks, Joe. I think that's a great question. And as Craig alluded, we use materiality to evaluate and sample throughout the audit. But when we look at investments, we look at investments based upon risks. And so we look at 100% of your equities and fixed income marketable securities, we have an independent pricing service within KPMG. So we get a total listing of all your investments, and we do a price test as of the end of the year of the valuation of all of your holdings for marketable and equity securities. And then for your alternative investments, and alternative investments are broken up into a couple of tranches. We look at your hedge funds, your private equities, and your real estate, and we break those up into risk profiles based upon the nature of the risks that each of those investment vehicles have. And we, utilizing our materiality, we do select a sample from those. We evaluate, any new funds that you may have had this year. We look at existing funds. And as we look at some of the new funds, we'll look to see whether or not some of those funds are a fund of one, which may be where SIRS is an owner of a fund, where you may have a majority of the ownership, where you may be looking at, you may be the only owner of that fund or majority owner of that fund, and we'll look at the risk profiles to make sure that we're evaluating those risks. But when we sample, we're also looking at, your due diligence procedures. So, due diligence as part of your investments is such an incremental part of your investments, not only from a valuation perspective, but also to make sure that you're following your controls and your procedures of how investments are brought on. So we're looking at your controls to determine that new investments that are coming on board are brought in and approved in accordance with the investment committee. We're also looking at the controls in place that you're following how the investment is set up, how the investments are the investment fees are being charged, and making sure that things are set up in accordance with your protocol. And then we also then select a sample and we confirm those with your independent fund managers. And we determine that from that confirmation what your fund managers are valuing for those funds at year end. But we also ask the fund managers to provide us with audited financial statements. Audited financial statements is the best way for us to determine valuation as of December 31st. But clearly there are some funds that the audit is not completed by the time we issue this report. So when that's the case, we do look at benchmarks and other types of indices that we can utilize to compare the fund manager's valuation report compared to the indices. And if there are things that are unusually fluctuating from the indices, we talk to the fund manager, we talk to the investment group to make sure that we understand that the fluctuation appears reasonable. That fluctuation could stem from either a large sale or an acquisition in a private equity fund. So there are lots of situations where that could come into play, but we do look at all those that we sample to determine that the valuation is reasonable. One of the things I would tell this committee is when we do our work, we issue our report, end of May. And what that does is it allows management to hold off in getting the valuation for, I think it's over 90% of the funds that SIRS holds, to ensure that the valuation as of 12/31 is appropriate for 12/31. So SIRS gets over 90% of all the valuations as of 12/31 that they record in early April. And then we utilize that valuation to select our sample to send to fund managers. So we get a really good representation when we take the sample in April, as far as here's all the funds that you have, here's the new types of funds, what's the nature of the funds and the risks. So when we're selecting our sample at that time, we have a really good risk profile that we're selecting and comparing to last year and the year before to understand changes in your fund managers and where there may be more of a higher risk profile for us to select and test. So that is, investments is probably it is our number one risk area that we're looking at here to ensure. So that is a quick overview of the work that we do for investments, but I'll pause there to see if there's any other specific questions that I might be able to help dive into more detail.
Not for me, but Alan Flanagan from Banking has his hand raised. Alan, do you have a question for Eric?
Yes, Mr. Treasurer. On the topic again of private markets investments and valuation, so occasionally we'll see where a manager doesn't have, for example, an independent fund administrator, or maybe they haven't done certain types of audits that might be considered standard, that might be flagged in our pre-consideration materials that says hey, this is perhaps a little bit of an operational risk. Do you follow those items? And if that's the case, is that something that would highlight as an additional risk where you might, pay additional attention to funds that don't have an independent fund administrator, for example?
So, Alan, are you so an independent fund administrator? And now we're looking at the audit reports and making sure that audit reports are in accordance with GAAP. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something different?
My understanding is that some fund managers don't have, an independent party that values the investments, and that they may do that themselves, or have some other way of going about that that's different than what we might typically see. And sometimes that can raise, a question from our perspective in terms of, when they report out certain performance data, what's our level of confidence that it's completely accurate?
And that's a great question. And so you wouldn't say that it's not a risk factor, but a risk factor for us would be, one, we evaluate to determine, are these funds, are they audited? Are they audited by a reputable independent accounting firm? Does that audit, is it in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles? And one of the things that we do, Alan, is that we look at the audit report compared to the fund manager's, the unaudited fund manager's statement, and we do a look back analysis. And so, they may not have an independent valuation that they have on site, but we are looking at to determine whether or not the valuations that the fund manager is providing to CSRS, is it reasonably consistent with the audited financial statements? And, we do that look back analysis, and that gives us comfort to determine whether or not the fund manager is providing you values that are reliable. So, to your point, they may not have an independent valuation, done, but that may come out as well from an audit perspective. So if they're giving you a valuation of 100 and the audit comes back at 110, we would have a concern that was a 10% valuation difference, and that would be an increased risk for us to evaluate, to understand why is the fund manager not providing values that we would consider to be reliable. Based upon our review, Alan, in the past, and doing this look-back analysis, we have not seen where there's been a heightened risk of concern there, but that is something that we look at each and every year, and certainly flag those funds that have a variance, significant variance between the audit report and the unaudited fund management statement.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Eric or Craig or Lindsay? Mary Soderberg.
Yes, thank you. I'm relatively new to the audit committee, and I know you plan to meet with us. Is this going to be at one of our future meetings, or will you be meeting with us individually, or what is that process?
So Mary, I know that we have an executive session with the committee here today. Okay. Is that what you're talking about?
Okay. And then, all right. So that is the.
Yep.
Okay. Very good.
Any other questions? These are. I mean, this is a great time for us to talk things through.
Anything else? Mary, you still have your hand up, as I learned in the last meeting. Is that your extra hand?
Must be my third hand.
Anything else? All right. I know we're going to hear from you again, but meanwhile, thanks for that. And thanks, Eric, by the way, for making the rest of us feel like slackers when it comes to holiday decoration.
And I can thank my wife for that.
Okay. All right. With that, we have no new business on the agenda. Does any member have new business to bring before the committee before we go into an executive session? We will return to public session, hopefully before darkness falls, and we'll take up the minutes then. Any new business anyone needs to raise? If not, Joe or Chris or Karen, can someone guide me into the appropriate executive session motion?
Yes, Mr. Treasurer. There is an executive session scheduled for the Audit Risk and Compliance Committee. There are, maybe a dozen, 10. There's 10 items, I believe, on the agenda. These are all items that involve, in one form or another, the results of audits, the discussion of perhaps material weaknesses, questions by the auditors, audit-related information that is privileged and confidential, and an appropriate topic for an executive session.
Okay. I don't need a motion, correct? I can just...
That is correct. You just announced it, and I believe we need to wait 40 seconds.
With that rationale, we're moving into executive session, and the folks on the technical team will tell us when we're there.
That's right. Thank you.
I think it's a very
Mary, I think it started at 4:15 technically, so I mean as soon as possible afterwards. But I think it's pretty quick, and I can hurry the folks along.
Excellent.
And Mary, noting it's not so much that I ran us late; it's that we started late.
And I just want to ask the question, do we want to follow up on the revised minutes at this meeting, or do we want to, pardon me?
Yes, I assume everyone, Terry let me know they had been sent out. Dan, have you seen the revised minutes, and did they meet with your approval?
They're uploaded in board docs.
I apologize. I didn't. Yeah. If in terms of the sentence you added, I'm just. Is it under agenda or is it under?
It would be under the approval of the minutes, item 3A. The revised minutes are uploaded.
Yeah, if someone's able to at least read that one sentence, and I'm happy to just do verbally. I'm trying to log on right now as we speak. Hitting refresh.
Would you like me to?
Could you read while we're waiting? Just read the revised section of the minutes.
Yes. Let me get the right document up here. I'm so sorry. I thought I had it right handy here. Okay. Minutes revised. And so when we go down. Okay. So. 3, let me control down here a little bit. Gee, when I'm not looking at the red line version, it was, okay. Concerns, so that last sentence was removed, was deleted, and in its place said, concerns were expressed over whether the questionnaire can be revised without further board action. That was in the second bullet. And then the other edit was at the top of the next page, I believe, where before it said, like, Mr. Houston will compile this information and share it with the committee at the December 20 meeting for review, and then it implied that it would be put into place. Now it just had a period after the word review. And of course, then that came and we just tabled it today. But so it just says that he would compile the information and share it with the committee at 2020 meeting for review. No implication that it was just going to go ahead and be implemented.
This is Dan Occo. Look, it's important that we be accurate, and so I just want to, the second change where we add the period, that's totally correct. I just want to make a simpler version of the earlier sentence because I think it's just to be exactly precise here. So the sentence is very simple. Concerns were expressed over whether the questionnaire can be revised without further board action. To shorten that, honestly to say concerns were expressed over the revision of the questionnaire, period.
I think you could go ahead and make a motion to accept the minutes with that change.
Are we back in,
I would make it-
back in session?
Yes, Mr. Treasurer, we're back.
We're in public.
Okay, Dan, hold the thought for a
Public
second.
session, yes.
On my agenda, I have one last item. Are there any committee comments, concerns, or questions that we've not addressed? If they're not, I want to return to the issue of the minutes. And I think a motion is in order to accept the minutes in board docs as revised minutes with a further amendment, which Dan is going to read. Correct, Dan?
Yes, so the sentence would say concerns were expressed over the revised questionnaire, period.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised minutes as so described?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Do I need a roll call on minutes, Chris or Karen?
No, you do not.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So, a little backwards, we have approved the minutes, and now, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.